So my number three film that shaped my view of LA is 1991's LA Story. This is a film directed by Mark Jackson, written by Steve Martin, starring Steve Martin, Richard E. Grant, Sarah Jessica Parker, and Victoria Tennant, among others. A lot of cameos in this one. IMDb plot, with the help of a talking freeway billboard, a wacky weatherman tries to win the heart of an English newspaper reporter who is struggling to make sense of the strange world of early 90s Los Angeles. So this movie for me really like helps capture the like self-deferential humor that really does exist here. I mean, the city, I feel, and the people doesn't really have any kind of air of self-importance. It's also not really necessarily a cynical place. Also not necessarily optimistic too much either. But, you know, compared to other like major US cities, you know, I really do think like LA has a unique kind of brand of humor. We also do have a culture here, which is something that, you know, the movie sort of makes fun of. And a lot of people do too, of like a lack of culture in LA. But I think this movie kind of touches on some of those things, as well as, you know, going through a long list of stereotypes that I think some of them are a bit dated. I mean, I was not living in LA in 1991 or in the 90s. So some of them like, okay, I can see this maybe landed a little bit better in 91, but a lot of these are really timeless. You know, a lot of classic LA jokes in this film, you know, traffic being bad, everyone being really beautiful, people caring about health. You know, there's a scene at the restaurant where an earthquake is happening and people are like nonchalant about it because earthquakes, you know, happen all the time here. No big deal. You know, the making fun of California cuisine as the food everywhere you go. I also love the scene where, you know, you try to get a dinner reservation and it's kind of like getting a bank loan. Like they're looking into, you know, your financials, but also like, are you cool enough to be attending this restaurant? And yeah, that stuff definitely exists now. You know, I've been, there's actually a restaurant that I'm trying to go to in the next 2 weeks. It's like the hot place here now. I have to, you know, get up at midnight and struggle to like get online reservations a week in advance, always selling out. So that stuff still is here. I mean, it's not like they're looking into my bank statements, but it is definitely something here. And, you know, like I mentioned too, that the sense of humor, because it's a very kind of like lighthearted sort of fantasy that Steve Martin wrote here. But this humor is, you know, there's a sense of mocking here. Like I said, it makes fun of all these stereotypes of LA. But I feel like what Martin is doing here, it's coming from like a good place. It's not like a cynical mocking or making fun of. It's very self-deferential, which I think there's a lot of you know, this humor that still exists now. I mean, there's a bunch of you know, Twitter accounts I follow that are essentially just local LA jokes, making fun of, again, things like the traffic and all this kind of stuff. Like Overheard in LA and Americana at the Brand memes are two Twitter accounts that I love. So I think it really captures that, as opposed to, you know, I contrast this to Sex and the City, a television show that I've not really seen, but for some reason, there's one episode that I keep stumbling upon in the 20 years when I stumble upon that show is when they all go to LA. And it's very much like the New Yorkers. All that they do is like rag on LA. And it's definitely like they make fun of it, but in a way that is a little more mean spirited than what Steve Martin's doing here. So I think what he does a great job in this film. And then too, like, I think, you know, like I mentioned, there's some culture this film does a good job of capturing, and the pathos of LA too. I mean, the line that really resonates with me a lot is, you know, I was deeply unhappy, but I didn't know it because I'm so happy all the time. It's like how he opens the film. And I do think here in LA, like people,
so true.
Yeah, like so positive and happy just because the weather's great, city's great to be in. So you don't really then realize, you know, some things in your life that, you know, might be missing. And just in terms of my relationship to this film too, like I'd actually never seen this movie until I left LA and went to Seattle. And I watched this in Seattle for the first time. And then definitely did, you know, make me miss LA a lot and helped kind of drive me back to coming here again and moving back here. So yeah, the film, I think it's good. Like it's fun. You know, there's a romance subplot that I don't really think, as the movie turns more into a romantic comedy, for me, it works a lot less, just loses a lot of its luster. But I do think it's, you know, it's a classic film that really captures the magic of Los Angeles. So I had to put it on the list.
Yeah, no, I was happy to see this one. Not surprised that you had this one exactly, because I thought of the Twitter accounts that you follow. And you put this movie down on the list.
Yeah.
I watched this movie maybe a few years ago, and as you know, and probably listeners know too, that for me, place and time and mood of what I'm watching and when I'm watching is pretty critical. So I think I watched it in a headspace where it sort of felt a little silly to me, and also, you know, this movie was made eons ago. So now all these jokes about food and traffic in LA, they've been done like a million times, right? Since then. So I was sort of like, oh yeah, I've already seen this, you know. So, and I didn't even finish the movie at that time, especially as the romance part started to kick off. I was like, this
not
is
good.
just not very good. And but then I watched it again, and I think I was able to somehow suspend all of that and just appreciate the movie for what it is. And I actually found it quite charming and quite funny. And especially now that I've had more distance from LA, it was sort of a nice reminder of some of the things that still are true for LA or about LA. And you're right, it's not mean spirited, even though some of the characters are kind of mean, like Steve Martin's wife.
Oh, girlfriend.
I don't know what is happening with her, but sure.
Yeah.
But the one thing that kind of resonated with me a little bit, which I don't think I even paid attention to the first time, was that there is a kind of a earnestness to the movie. You know, like the fact that traffic, which is the most hated part of LA, the billboard sign on the traffic freeway is sort of what is helping Steve Martin, you know, realize his true potential, what really matters in life, you know, go find his dream, love, what have you. There's sort of kind of a sweet irony to that, I thought. And I don't know, that made me smile. That made me look at this movie in a much softer, sweeter kind of way, which I don't think I was doing the first time I watched it. And then also, you know, there's a reason why they're British people and people from all over the world, because I think Los Angeles is such an international place. Like everybody from somewhere else. Like there are very few native, you know, LAites or Los Angelinos. So I thought that also, I took note of that more so than the first time I watched it. So yeah, classic LA movie. Steve Martin is great. SJP is very annoying, but that's the point.
Oh, I thought she was great. I thought she was great in this. Yeah, this is back when I used to really like her. But yeah, that is definitely the point. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think, you know, Steve Martin himself was an LA trans. He didn't grow up in Los Angeles,
right?
But this was his, like, you know, love letter to the city. And I think that earnestness definitely comes across. I think it's a great way to describe it, like the tone of the film for sure. Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.